Well, that sucked.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I'm also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. I didn't record a podcast yesterday due to travel and due to the game and due to just the timing of everything. So I felt like it would be most appropriate to wait until this point in time to do the podcast. As you can probably tell by my voice, I'm a little hoarse. You can probably tell by my face, a little burned. Don't worry, it's natural. And I spent the weekend up in Fayetteville for the regional there in Fayetteville with the Arkansas baseball team. And unfortunately for the Razorbacks, their season came to an end. Didn't even get out of the regionals. They ran into a team that was TCU that was just on another level, offensively especially. And that was all she wrote. And so now we are here, sitting here trying to make sense of it all. And we'll talk about heading into next season as well as getting to some basketball news too that will be pretty beneficial, or at least something that can be pretty exciting for people. But that's the way it ended. Arkansas could not beat TCU at all this season as they went 0-3 against them, but 0-2 against them in the regional when it mattered the most. Arkansas did win 2 games against Santa Clara, so at least they have that going for them. But at the end of the day, it was just too much TCU. TCU, first off, you got to give them a lot of credit. I mean, the offense that they had, I've never seen anything like that. I don't know if they got underseeded or undervalued. They've been on a hot streak, but I saw someone put out a stat that they had scored, I think it was 92 runs in 7 games straight. That's just stupid. That is stupid amount of numbers and when it comes to their offense. But they smoked Arkansas in the first game, putting 20 runs on them. It wasn't even close. And then in the next game, it ended up being 12-4, which ended up being the final game for Arkansas. And they finished their season 43-18. And, you know, we'll go through the season too and just talk about it. But at least in this game, it was really disappointing to see Arkansas only get 3 hits. I think that's what it came down to for me. An elimination game, you got 3 hits. It just can't happen. And I think that it's also more than just getting hits. And I've talked to some former players and everything about this. It's not just about getting hits, but it's about having quality at bats, working the pitch count, trying to put some pressure on the pitchers and on the defense too. But Arkansas just did none of that. And it was frustrating to watch, especially considering how far this team had come and what they had done this year by winning being a share title holder of the SEC and then winning the SEC West outright. This is how it happens. It's the first time since Arkansas, I guess 2017 in Fayetteville, since the first time that Arkansas has not made it out of the regionals in postseason play. So kind of a weird feeling, to have baseball in this quickly, in this early, but it is the way it is. And Arkansas is going to have to regroup and look towards next year, which again, we'll talk about. But I want to say at this, I want to go through some positives or at least some silver linings on some stuff. And then we can talk about some things that may need to change or may need to get fixed or may need to be different heading into next season. But the positives I will say is, of course, the injuries, the amount of injuries that this team went through, and for them to still accomplish what they did was really impressive. I mean, we've talked about it all year long. It's almost like throughout the regular season, and nobody wants to hear this, and that's fine. Maybe there are people that are still mad. But how I look at it as that, hey, you overachieved in the regular season considering the injuries that you had. Now, it's not taking anything away from the accomplishment, but you overachieved. Like the fact that we kept sitting here saying, how is this happening? How are they putting it together? It just really showed that they were a team that was built for a 3-game series. That's it. That's all you could do. That's all you could muster. But they weren't built as a team with the injuries to go 4 or 5 games in a weekend. It's just not how they were built because of the injuries and that they had. Because if you just look at it, I know they played different teams, but, Arkansas won 2 out of 3, in the first 3 games that they played in this regional. That was it. And so the more you look back on it, the more it kind of makes sense of that's how this team was just going to go about it. So you got to give credit where credit is due. And the coaching job that Dave Van Horn did throughout the regular season was incredible. It was impressive. And I still think it's one of his best coaching jobs he's ever had. But with the injuries and the lack of hitting, especially in postseason play, the lack of consistency from some, it just didn't get to that point. But I still consider this to be a solid season. I mean, you got to say the accomplishments there are incredible. I mean, because anytime you win the SEC in baseball, that's worth something. The SEC is the toughest conference in all of baseball without question by far. And so you got to give a lot of credit where credit is due for that. And I think that just the effort, like the team never gave up. They never, just laid down. They never felt sorry for themselves. They never let any outside noise get to them. They just kept fighting. They just kept going through it all. And they did everything that they possibly could to make it work. And again, that's something that needs to be looked at as commendable. But at the end of the day, it's about what you do in postseason play. I had a lot of Alabama fans for some stupid reason. I really don't understand why. But they were coming at me about my tweet and how I said during the basketball season that the fact that they were so excited about winning the regular season and said that that's better than advancing into the NCAA tournament than other teams. I laughed at them because I'm like, no, it's about what you do in the postseason. That's how it's defined as a season. So they came back and finally I was like, oh, yeah, baseball, look at this. Alabama's going to the super regionals. So how do you feel about that? Regular season titles, you love those? Ha. It's like, yeah, feel the same way. Alabama had a better season than what Arkansas's had because they're going to the super regionals and Arkansas's not. I mean, that's just the way it is. So I don't know why it was like them trying to get at me. It was like, they're just, I guess I know why they're trying to get at me. They're Alabama fans and they're really dumb and they don't understand baseball or basketball or anything. So it's fine. But that's the thing is that it's a disappointing year. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm taking away from the accomplishments they had in the regular season because I'm not. Like, again, it's something to be celebrated. But postseason is where your money's made. And how I look at it, and, maybe this is a way of putting it, I think maybe in the best way I possibly can. And maybe a way that's relatable to where people don't, get confused because, again, fans of other fan bases in the SEC really have a knack for getting very confused by simple things. So let me lay it out this way. I'll put it in show form, all right? Breaking Bad is one of my favorite shows of all time, and I'm sure a lot of you have watched it. Breaking Bad, to me, is one of the most perfect shows when it comes to beginning to end, storyline, everything that went about it, satisfaction at the end. It doesn't get any better than what you see, which is a very difficult thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do, to not only have a great show, but to keep the momentum of that show, ending it at the right time, and being able to nail the ending, the final result, the lasting impression, ending it that way. Similar to what it's like to win a national title in sports. It's difficult. Not many teams do it. And there's a reason why it's so difficult to do. That is the ultimate season that you want to have. You want to have a Breaking Bad season. You want to have a Breaking Bad year. Where from beginning to end, it's as great as it's been, and you stick the landing and you nail it. What you don't want to do is have a Game of Thrones, which I also loved Game of Thrones. And you notice I said love because of how that season and how that show went. It was, without question, to me at least, one of the most highest produced and great storytelling and story writing on any sort of screen, especially television, that I had ever seen. Like, I could not get enough of it. I was watching it. There's so many great moments, so much epicness and everything. But then the ending happened. Final season or two happened. And because of that fact, the greatness that was that show has forever kind of been tainted in my mind to where now when I think of Game of Thrones, I don't think of that greatness. I don't think of what it was in seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like how just epic and amazing it was. I think of the ending and how terrible it was. And it tarnishes ever so slightly the show in general. That's kind of what it feels like for Arkansas baseball season this year. It was great. It was fun. It was so cool to go to games, to watch the games, to see what this team was accomplishing. And it's still, to this day, when you look at it in its nutshell and look at it in that perspective, it's still an incredible thing. But when you don't stick the landing, that's the lasting impression. That's what's going to be remembered. And Arkansas didn't stick the landing. Now, there's reasons for that. I believe so. And I'm going to try not to rant on them too much. We went through a few of them. Injuries, not getting timely hits, TCU just being on another world good. Like, those are the things that happen. So, because of that fact, it's not something that you can, it doesn't erase what happened in the regular season, but it's the lasting impression. And the lasting impression is always it's going to be the most important thing. So it's a disappointment. It's a disappointment. Solid year, but disappointing. And now you got to turn the page. But I can't tell you how much fun it was to at least watch it while it lasted. I was hoping we'd get a few more weeks just for content purposes, because now it's going to be interesting in June what we're going to talk about here on the podcast. But overall, I give a lot of credit to Dave Van Horn and this staff. I'm interested to see what happens if there's any. I'm not saying there should be for sure any coaching changes, but you think about like Nate Thompson and Matt Hobbs, both have been around for a long time. And, how long do you have a coach stay in one spot as an assistant? Do you maybe try to mix things up a little bit? Not to say you fire somebody even, but maybe say, hey, if there's a job out there, encourage them to take it. Is it something like that? That they change the way that they practice. Do they change the way that they go about it? Because I just don't feel like, or at least I don't feel confident enough to where what they're doing right now and how they've been doing it right now going into like next year, it doesn't make me feel like, oh yeah, this is going to be in a way to just take it to the next level. They got to mix up something. They got to change something. And I wish I could sit here and pinpoint and say, yeah, this is what they got to do. It's not that easy, but there are opportunities to do so. And we'll talk about next season here in just a little bit. But first, I got to tell you, you got to make that fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs, because right now new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's right, $2,500 in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. There's no better place to bet on all the playoff action when it comes to the NBA Finals than the America's #1 sportsbook. It's FanDuel.com/locked-on. Again, no sweat first bet up to $2,500. FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, we got to talk about next year because, again, the season's over, and we got to look forward to next year in baseball. And I'll say this, just looking at it from what I believe will happen when guys come back, guys that move on, all those things, this is just going to be based on that. Some people I have a good indication on what they're doing. Some people I don't. And I'm just going to go with my gut feeling here, because, again, there's not been any official announcements because the season just ended. But I'm going to go with my gut feeling of what this team's going to look like next year. Now, we'll start with the pitching. I believe that the pitching, experience-wise and depth-wise, is going to be incredible. And so people are going to say, oh, what Dave Van Horn said, last year, and then look at us now, we sucked. Like, yeah, okay, well, they had injuries, and it goes along with it, and that still their pitching was not bad. Like, easy. So when it comes to the experience, those and the guys that are coming back, here's what I think happens. As far as we'll start with the right-handers right now. Jackson Wiggins is not coming back. I wouldn't think he's coming back. I think he's moving on. It'd be nice for him to come back, just again for the experience and for the power that he has. But I still think he's not. I don't think he's going to be coming back. You get Brady Tiger back for sure. That's huge. I think you get Cody Frank back as well. I'm pretty sure he has his COVID year that you can use. You get him back. You get Austin Ledbetter back. You get Dylan Carter back. You get Will McIntyre back, which is huge. Gage Wood back, which is huge. You get Cody Adcock back, which is huge. So those are just a few of them. I mean, Fouch comes back too. You saw a little bit of him. But overall, those are just the right-handers. So you're talking about, let's just go through the ones that are actually like key contributors and have been this past season. Not the guys that could take major steps forward. We're talking about Brady Tiger, Cody Frank, Dylan Carter, Will McIntyre, and Gage Wood, and Cody Adcock. Those are 6 guys that can and will come back, in my opinion. Those are all really good dudes that could take steps forward and could end up being an even better player next year than what they were this past season. Those are just your right-handers. Now let's look at your left hand. Zach Morris is gone. Not going to have him. But you get Hagen Smith back, right? You get Parker Coyle back, right? And Hunter Holland's gone. I think Hunter Holland moves on. So as far as guys that actually played this year, left-handed pitchers, Hagen Smith, Parker Coyle, and I guess that's it as far as guys that were there on the roster. So 2 guys plus the 6, that's 8. 8 dudes that played this year, contributed this year, was a part of the team this year, and also a few of them that actually got hurt that will return next year. That's a really great group of pitching to have. Like that's awesome. And who knows? Maybe I could be surprised by one of these guys getting brought back because of some NIL. Like maybe Jackson Wiggins gets some sort of deal there. You know, who knows? Maybe they could work out something else. But those are just the guys that would be returning. Hasn't even gotten into the point of the guys that are going to get out of high school or the guys that will go into the transfer portal to get. That's incredible. So I think pitching next year, as long as everyone's healthy, as we all know that's important, it looks great. It looks great for them. And I think that it will be great for them next year. And it's something that Hog fans can really kind of hold their hat on and say, hey, if all things fail, at least we have great pitching. So I like that. Now, as far as the field goes, that's when it gets dicey. So let's start with the catchers. You got Parker Rowland that will come back. Hudson Polk will be back too. But you feel like maybe one of those guys transfers, and who knows? Who's to say that they'll stick with Parker Rowland or anything like that? I didn't think Parker Rowland was bad. I'm not saying he was, but they may want somebody that bats a little bit better. I think he's batted finished like 178, something like that. Just I'm not saying catchers have to be elite hitters, but man, you just like to do better than that. So who knows what they do with that? But they could have definitely 2 guys back this next year that contributed this past year. So then you have the infield. You get Harold Cole back, right? Caleb Cali, I think, is gone. I think Caleb Cali's gone. He's going to the MLB. John Bolton's gone. You get Stovall back. Jason Jones back. Slavens is gone. Reese Robinette is back. And Peyton Holt, I think, will be back. Okay? So there's just a few of the infielders. So you're talking about Harold Cole, Stovall, Peyton Holt, Jason Jones. And I even like what Robinette showed, but you're getting 3 of those guys back that like actually played significant. Like they'll be starts. Like let's be honest, Stovall, Holt, and I think Cole will start maybe at shortstop. Unless they go into the portal and get one of those guys too. Jason Jones is perfectly capable of it too. So either way, 2 guys with 2 Peytons, they're coming back next year, and that's gonna be huge for them. All right. So then you think about some of the other guys like a Ben McLaughlin. You get him back. That's huge. I think he'll probably play first base, I would assume. But you get him back. He's a great hitter. You get Hunter Grimes back, who's kind of been all over the place, but he's playing. You got him in the outfield, which is big. Kendall Diggs in the outfield too. He'll be back. So you get both of those guys back. That's huge. In fact, no, I should say all 3 of those guys back. That's huge. Then go into the outfield. Porfrin's gone. Wagner's gone. Josenberger's gone. All right, so you're losing your entire outfield. But you got to think that Diggs will be out there in the outfield. You got to think that Grimes will be out there in the outfield. Know that they've had some other guys out there, maybe Mason Neville. Maybe he'll be out there in the outfield. Maybe they put Grimes out there. I think I mentioned Grimes being out there in the outfield to put him out there. So something like that. But yeah, that's what you're looking at. And folks, that's just the players that are coming back or that will or could come back. Didn't even get into the players that they're getting out of the portal or anything like that. So just going through the roster right there and looking at it, that's another incredible team with a lot of experience. You're going to have a lot of juniors there that played and contributed since they were freshmen. And you're hoping that they take the next step forward. So you got some good things to build off of. It's a great core group of people to have to build on next year, pitching especially. But get some guys out of the portal, get some of these freshmen to step up in a major way, and it could be another great season for Razorbacks, maybe even a better season, because let's just be honest, I don't want to get too much into it, but the last time Arkansas lost in the regionals at home was in 2017. We all know what happened next year. I don't want to bring it up, but we all know what happened next year. Could go very well for them. We'll do a little basketball news and get to the updates of that here on the other side of the break. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast has to deal with a little basketball news here. So it was so funny when Ron Holland didn't come to Arkansas and he decided to go to the G League, Ignite or whatever. I was wondering what they were going to do. And I had heard the entire time that Grant Nelson was not an option. I mean, and I'm not the only one that's heard that. I don't want everybody thinking that's just me. A lot of my fellow media members said the same thing because they heard it from probably the same people. Grant Nelson wasn't on the radar, not really a thing that they were looking at. They went all in on Ron Holland. Well, it would look like there's at least a little bit of a change of heart because now Grant Nelson is officially visiting Arkansas. This is according to hogsports.com. He's visiting Fayetteville next Thursday and Friday. So that is happening. I guess so this Thursday and Friday. Should make that known. But he entered in the portal back in May 2nd. Of course, he's, for those of you who don't know, he's the 6'11 guy. He's 235. He averaged 18 and 9 and 2. Shot 52% from the field and 27% from three-point land, and also 72% from a free throw line. He's the number 6 player in the transfer portal. He has 2 years of eligibility remaining, and it looks like he's somebody that Arkansas is high on, and he is high on Arkansas. Now, what does that all mean? Who knows? I do believe that he's visiting some other schools, but Arkansas gets the last visit before he makes his decision, which is always a big thing. For those of you who don't know, like that's a huge deal. But overall, is he coming to Arkansas? I don't know. Do I like Arkansas's chances? Of course. I love Arkansas's chances there. And I know how much we all wanted Ron Holland. But, man, it would be a fun thing to see Grant Nelson and Trevin Brazil just playing off each other. Like, imagine that. Imagine what that looks like. That's beefy. That's fun. That's electric. And having some size down there with both of them and their offensive game, you know, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better combo down low, offensively especially, than those two. So just keep an eye out on that. I hope it happens. I would love to have him on board. I think all of you will. And if he does end up coming to Arkansas, I think most people had Arkansas about as a top 15 team. They'll jump up significantly. Probably be into that top 10 range. Because what's also funny, too, is I started, and maybe it's just me looking at it through a Razorback lens, but, man, if it's like you get Ron Holland, who is a freshman phenom and a two-way player, number 2 player in the country, I'm not saying I didn't want him or that you're better off without him. I'm not saying that. But if the trade-off is that you get Grant Nelson, a guy who's established himself in college basketball as being a premier player, is a big-time dude, and also addresses a little bit more of the offensive side of the ball, especially down low, and he can shoot outside just like Trevin Brazil can, that's something that is very appealing to me. And it could end up being a lot better for Arkansas than what Ron Holland was going to be able to get, because at least with this guy, you know he's played college basketball. He's a 21-year-old instead of being an 18-year-old. It's not a one-and-done thing necessarily. He's just trying to work hard. So it could be a blessing in disguise, if you will. But we'll see how it plays out. I guess we'll find out later this week how the visit went, hopefully. And hopefully find out soon after that if Arkansas is going to be the place that he calls home. But we'll have to wait and see till that happens. Appreciate everybody listening in to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNabors for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.